Hey guys, Teeple here. Today I'm going to answer the two most common questions that I get on my videos. The first one being, how do you lock your guns? And the second one being, why do you lock your guns? The answer to the first question is go to the options or the settings and change your controller scheme to either preset 3 or preset 4. Take a look at them and see whichever one you prefer. I personally use preset 3 for whatever reason. Those are the two options that will allow you to lock your gun with the left joystick. Now, why is that important? It's because it doesn't change the camera angle and you don't actually have to be holding down the button. All the other presets require you to hold what's called either L1, I believe, or left bumper on Xbox, and it changes your viewpoint into this kind of overhead view, which when I was part of the alpha test, this was the only option for locking guns, so it's all I'm used to, but it's far more beneficial. Like when this game launched, the default preset is the overhead one, and without looking at the controls too closely, I was very disappointed in the change because it's just functionally not nearly as useful in my opinion. But once I figured out that the presets do exist to allow you to lock with the left joystick, it was a no-brainer. I immediately switched it and will never even consider going back. This is far superior, again, in my opinion, but that's my recommendation. So now, why do I lock the guns? Well, the basic concept is you do not want your guns floating around. When they're not locked, basically what they're going to do is they're going to follow where you're looking on the screen. But the problem is, and this is exacerbated on battleships because of their extremely slow turret traverse, the rear mounted guns on your ship cannot, because of the towers and stuff on your ship, they cannot turn forwards. Alright, so if you, like, let's say I'm pointing out the right hand side and then I look left, they're going to attempt to turn all the way around, you know, from a rearward position to catch up to the other side. So that takes a long time. It's going to keep your guns out of position and make it a lot harder for you to get full maximum firepower on your targets. So you can see I've had my guns locked roughly at this 30-degree angle. We'll talk more about that. But this is ideally where I want them. My armor is nicely angled. Now I've identified there's a destroyer. I have the perk on this commander that allows you to switch your shells if they're fully loaded very rapidly. So it takes 8 seconds to put HE on. My guns are already loaded. I have all 4 of them. Now, I missed the shot just a little bit. I possibly could have one-shot him there, but I did hit him, looks like 4 shells, I believe. And my guns were perfectly aimed, exactly where I wanted them. So that's why you keep your guns locked. And if you watch my games closely, you'll see I play, I guess, between 80 and 90% of the games with guns locked. And it's just, get in the habit of doing it, and it will improve your game extraordinarily, in my opinion. It's probably one of the more useful tips for all players that don't do it, but especially beginners. And so you can see there, perfect. Now the idea with battleships especially is you want to keep your guns pointed off the same side of the ship for as much of the game as possible. Most games you'll end up switching maybe once, but if it ends up being 2 or 3 times, that can turn into a problem, because your guns just aren't in position to fire. So I was a little bit out of a position. I don't normally like to play the extreme sides in American battleships because they're so slow, but I recognized that our team wasn't going to defend the side very well, so I did decide to play the left. But I'm going to skip forward a little bit just because now, compared to the other ships on the map, I'm out of position. So we'll speed up just a sec here and pick it up in a minute. Alright, so as we skip forward here in just a sec, you'll see my guns are essentially at the same angle here, and this is roughly where I want to keep them for the majority of the game when I'm planning on firing in a forward position, and they'll be mirrored backwards at the same angle when I'm firing in a rearward position. So I'm going to call this 30 degrees when we're shooting forwards, and I'm going to call it 150 degrees when we're shooting backwards. I don't know the exact angles, but that's roughly what it's going to be. I do have a good example at the end of the video of where I want to lock them, and I'm planning on shooting backwards. So, but what I'm trying to do, I'm never, or I'm not looking at where my guns are pointed at. I'm looking at the diagram at the bottom of my screen most of the time. So now I've turned my ship to where all 4 guns are able to fire. I call that an open angle or an open firing position. That's just my own terminology. I don't know what it's supposed to be called. But as soon as I've fired, you can see my guns are locked again. They're locked at the same angle. And now what am I doing? I'm deciding where do I want to point my ship. I roughly want to point my ship more or less directly at the most dangerous threat to me personally. So now I've determined that's this battleship. Again, my guns were locked for the majority of the time. Now that they're almost loaded, I unlock them. We open up the angle again so all 4 guns can fire. We fire. I should lock here. I'm just kind of oohing and eyeing my shot, but that's lazy play right there. They should immediately be locked, and I should immediately be closing that angle. Maybe he wasn't aiming at me. I guess I'd have to look at that a little bit more closely. Maybe I would identify it and he wasn't actually a threat to me. But immediately lock the guns, immediately close down the angle. Now again, they're still at the same angle. So this is my forward firing angle. This is always how ideally I want to be firing at the exact same angle every time. Alright, and that's because that goes down to the armor angling. And if you're not familiar with that, I do have a video that I made a couple weeks ago, posted up. It's in my beginners series. So go to that playlist and find the video. It's a lot of important concepts there. But again, we fire, the guns are immediately locked. And I'm not really paying, I don't have to pay attention to the guns now. I'm paying attention to my armor. I'm able to look around, see who's a threat to me. Right now it's this destroyer, so I'm keeping the angle at him. And my guns are ready to fire. As soon as they're loaded, I'm just going to unlock them right before they're done loading, and we're going to pop them. No problem. I don't have to worry about, as I'm looking around, they're floating around, and they have to catch up to me once I want to re-aim. Nope, that's not a problem. Immediately locked again. Now we're assessing the threat. This closer battleship's the bigger threat to me, in my opinion. So now we're positioning towards him. I'm opening up the angle just slightly early here, but it's still a very steep angle, you can see. I'm just getting into position. So once these guns are nearly unlocked, or nearly loaded, I unlock them again, line up the shot, fire, immediately locked. And now we're going to close down the ship's angle again. So it's a very easy concept, but it's very important, and it does take some practice. Now, you know, but I mean, this is how you do it, because when I'm closing this angle down, any shots that are coming at me, they're either going to bounce off my ship, or they're going to hit the superstructure, which isn't going to cause as much damage. And again, the guns are exactly where I want them. So, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. There's just not a lot more to say about it. Now again, I should have immediately locked him and closed down the angle, but I was just, you know, he was going to die, so I figured, what the hell, let's just admire the shot. Now immediately locked again. Now we're looking on the map. I'm looking at that grayed out battleship. He's not spotted, but I know roughly where he is. So I'm turning my position, or my ship's position. Not worrying about the guns, because I know they're exactly where I want them to be once I decide to fire. Alright, so we're closing down the angle. Allow him to shoot. Very steep angle. You can see that nice bass drum sound where those shots bounce off my ship. Beautiful thing. Guns are already in position. Just waiting for that rear one to catch up. Fire. Now he's at a pretty steep angle there, so a lot of those bounce, but that's alright. We got a little bit of damage there. Again, lock, close down the angle. And he's just not making a great play based on how he's angling his ship towards me, but he does make a good play here. He holds on to his shot until he knows I'm going to open up my angle again. So he holds on to his main salvo till I do, and then he takes his shot, and that gives him a pretty decent angle. And so that ends up being a good play. But now I want you to watch where I lock my gun on the diagram following this play. Alright, I decided to make a circle here. And the reason I do that is because if I continue to push left, he's going to sail past me by the time my guns A load and B catch up to him. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to execute a circle. This is a good play to make in battleships. Like, watch this sequence here and then incorporate it. I do this play more and more often as I evolve as a player. So watch where I've locked my guns. 30 degrees coming off the rear. Now I'm turning towards him. I'm angled at him. He blasts his main salvo there. My armor was angled perfectly. Did basically no damage. Now my guns are caught up to where I pre-locked them. They're loaded. Fire. He gone. Put it on the board. So great play there, if you don't mind me saying so, or a good play anyways, depending on what you think. I thought it was a great play. If you did like the video and you thought it was helpful, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I got plenty more World of Warships. Questions, comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you guys all later. Alright, peace.